is Kishore Chandiramani, and I'm going to address the question how to give rest to our mind. I don't think there'll be anyone who will doubt the wisdom in wanting to give rest to our mind. But people might differ in their views as to how to do it. And I'm going to discuss a few strategies here, and they are not comprehensive by any means. Now, we all know how to give rest to our body. When we have worked hard during the day, we come home, we sit on a settee or lie down, put our feet up, and our body knows how to undo the tiredness. If we have worked hard on the computer and the eyes get tired, we just sit back and close our eyes and we can rest our eyes. But you would have noticed that the clock of the mind is constantly ticking. Even when we are asleep and dreaming, the mind is constantly thinking, analyzing. So the mind is not resting even in dreams. It's only in deep sleep that the mind truly rests. But can we do something to rest our mind during the waking hours? And the answer to this question is yes, we can do something to rest our minds. Then the next question is how to do it. But before we answer that question, we need to understand what are the actions of the mind. What is stress? What tires the mind? And the simple answer to that question is our thoughts and our emotions are the actions of the mind. The judgments that we make on a daily basis are the actions of the mind. And if I were to define stress, I would define it as an emotional reaction that we experience in response to different situations. Now, if you analyze deeply, the emotional reactions that happen, they are not happening in response to the actual situation out there, but what judgments we have made. And according to the judgment, the emotional reactions follow. So, if we want to give rest to our mind, we have to stop the action for short periods of time. And from that point of view, suspending our judgment for short periods of time can give rest to our mind. Now, one might question the wisdom in wanting to suspend our judgments. And I would say in response to that we are not saying that judgments are not important. Judgments are important when we are out and about, when we are dealing with the external world. But when we want to give rest to the mind, then we should have the ability to suspend judgments, to not make judgments. And that's where this technique helps. So there are some strategies that we can learn to suspend our judgments. Now, what are those strategies? First of all, we can say to ourselves that all judgments that we make are relative and not absolute. If I say to myself, I'm intelligent, but compared to a lot of people, I'm not that intelligent. And if I say I'm stupid, then again, compared to a lot of people, I'm not that stupid. If I say I'm rich, then again, compared to a lot of people, I'm not that rich. If I say I'm poor, Then again, compared to a lot of people, I'm not that poor. And one can apply it to lots of other things, one's health, one's success in life, and everything. So that can help us tone down our judgment. Second thing that we can say to ourselves is that the judgments that we are making are based on partial information. We don't have the full story, or we don't know the inside stories of people's lives. So the judgments that we are making are based on partial information. So we can say to ourselves that we haven't got the full picture yet, and that can help us tone down the judgment. The third thing that we can do is say to ourselves, we can't look into the future. What judgment I have made now is based on the information I have got now, but maybe in future, looking back, I might make a different judgment. So that also will help us tone down the judgment. And then finally, we have a tendency to make global judgments. Global judgments like, I'm a failure in my life, I'm not good enough. So what I suggest is that we should move from making global judgments to specific judgments. In what ways I have been successful in life, and in what ways I have been a failure. That can help us tone down the judgment. If you analyze deeply the functioning of the mind has a part of it that doesn't make any judgment, and there's another part of the mind that is making judgment all the time. So for short periods of time, if we are able to connect ourselves to the part of the mind that is not making a judgment, will help us rest our mind. The second thing that can help us with this is not identifying with our thoughts and feelings. And the example I give here is that if one can see one's mind as a river, and you are like a person sitting on the banks of the river, and you are watching the stream flow down, and you see lots of good and bad things in the river. Sometimes you see people partying on a boat, or bunch of flowers floating down, and that also passes. And then you see some unpleasant sights, a dead cattle floating, or sewage water floating down. So everything that arises in the mind passes away. And if you don't identify with the contents of the mind and just observe and not even try to control the movement and not react to it, that can help us rest the mind. And the other thing that can help us rest our mind is breath awareness. Now, breath awareness is a part of mindfulness meditation or vipassana meditation, where one learns to simply observe one's natural, normal breathing by focusing at the entrance of the nostrils. Now I'm going to explain how breath awareness can help us deal with the stress. If we analyze deeply, we find that whenever we are getting stressed, we are either thinking about the past, something that happened yesterday, last week, last month, or something that is going to happen in future, later on today or tomorrow. But if we focus on the present fully, then we can cut out a lot of stress. Thinking about the future can make us insecure, because secure future is guaranteed to nobody. You might be the president of the country, you might be a celebrity, but in a few years' time you may not be the president or the celebrity. So that brings a sense of insecurity. Or thinking about the future can create an illusion that may not happen. And the most important thing is we can't act in the future. So if you are spending too much time thinking about the future, we are becoming prone to stress. or exposing ourselves to stress. Or if you think about the past, that also gives us stress, because if we had good time, then they're gone. We don't have them. If we had unpleasant experiences, they also cause stress to us. So if you are focusing our attention on the breath, we are learning to live in the present, and that helps. Second thing that happen about breath awareness is that the awareness of breath does not involve any thoughts or emotions. So if we are focusing our mind on the breathing, then we are learning to step outside our thoughts and emotions. And every thought and every emotion dies its natural death if we don't pay attention to it. So it's simply shifting our attention from something that is worrying us or bothering us to an activity that does not involve any thoughts or emotions can help us. Thirdly, it gives us a greater control over our mind. The mind has a tendency to go into thoughts and emotions and feelings, and we are trying to bring it back to the breathing. Again, the mind goes into thoughts. You bring it back to the breathing. Again, the mind goes off. So maybe dozens of times, hundreds of times, the mind goes off and you bring it back to the breathing. So it gives you greater control over your mind. You are learning how to detach your mind from whatever it is thinking and deploy it in a direction you want it to, on the breathing. And once you have learned how to do it, you can deploy it elsewhere as well. So this gives you more control over your mind. The example I give about breath awareness is that it's like sitting on a rock when you are climbing a mountain. When you climb a mountain, you get tired. What do? You just sit on a rock for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to gather strength, and then you start climbing up. Again, when you are tired, you sit on a rock, and then when you feel strong enough, you walk further. In the same way, whenever you have stress or feel tired, if you concentrate on the breath, it's like resting on a rock. So this is how we can give rest to the mind. And finally, a thing that can help us with stress management is witnessing our own mind. Now let me explain how this can help. Sigmund Freud, a famous psychiatrist and psychologist, said that the mind has two parts to it. One is experiencing self and the other is observing self. Now, it's experiencing self that suffers, that experiences the emotion. And observing self is simply reflecting, simply watching. And the observing self does not suffer the emotion. And some people have very strong experiencing self and very weak observing self. And they end up suffering more. Whereas others have a very strong observing self and very weak experiencing self. And that helps them manage their emotions and deal with stress. And this is something which can be learned, how to be more observant. And that's where the breath awareness comes in. When you are watching your breath, you are developing a part of your mind that is observing in a neutral way, without interfering, without wanting to change things. So you are learning how to observe your breath, and that helps you observe your emotions and thoughts as well. So to give an example, if your mind is 100% and 20% is experiencing, that means 80% is observing. If 80% is experiencing, then 20% is observing. The total has to be 100%. So the more you are able to observe your thoughts and emotions in a detached, choiceless, non-judgmental, non-reacting manner, the more you are able to rest your mind and control your emotions. So simply by witnessing, you can de-stress yourself. But there is a way to witness. So when you want to give rest to your mind, you come home, you lie down, you close your eyes, and you are reflecting on your thoughts and emotions. That witnessing has to be non-judgmental, choiceless, non-interfering. And for that, you can say to yourself, whatever is happening right now inside my mind is neither good nor bad. I'm not saying that things are not good or bad in the real world. There are good and bad things, and you have to deal with them accordingly. But whilst doing introspection, you need to adopt that attitude of non-judgmental, choiceless, non-reacting, non-interfering observation of your own thoughts and emotions. So it's only during introspection that I say to people that you hold on to this attitude that whatever is happening right now in my mind is neither good nor bad. Things are happening according to certain laws of psychology, laws that govern the functioning of the mind. So if you want to do things differently, you need to understand what laws are governing production of these emotions and existence of these emotions and dissipation of these emotions, and then you'll be able to control your mind better. So these are some of the strategies that one can use to rest one's mind, and there are many more as well that one can access from other videos from this clinic or elsewhere. Thank you very much.